Hey peeps, Naisha here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the new story that is on Romance Club right now. It is called Te Amo, the Bay of Hope. I just want to show you guys how it looks before I click on it, because unfortunately you can see the in development status kind of blocking the Te Amo part. So yeah, that's how it looks without, it blocking the title. And yeah, so basically Te Amo is the 48th book released on Romance Club. This book was released April 2025. The author of this book is Dmitry, who also wrote Gladiator Chronicles. The plot summary: a writer arrives at a beachside guesthouse to find inspiration for her novel. She doesn't expect the three others whose fate brings them to stay at the very same guesthouse. Now, in this story, as all romance club stories, there are influence for like the main character. Um, the first one is logic. Your main character relies on reasoning and is interested in finding out motives and the relationship between facts and possible consequences. The second one is emotion, where where your main character is primarily interested in experience and feelings. You have you also have the two main paths that you could take, which could make the ending of your main character story different. The first path is achiever. Your main character prefers to take action, being proactive inspires her, and she finds it hard to sit still. And the second one is observer, where the main character prefers to witness what's happening and not interfere with the course of events. These choices change the stories, the interactions you have with other characters, and the scenes you will be able to play. Now, the default name of the main character is Jane Dawson. You could change her first name. You can't change her last name, so keep that in mind. You can also change her race in any shape or form. So if you want her to be white, she could be white. Black, she could be black. Asian, she could be Asian. Hispanic, she could be Hispanic. Um, and the love interests, you have four of them in the story. You have Michael Hall, Janine DeBose, um, Thomas Capeno, and Lee Shao. And now, before I get into what chapters 1, 2, 3 detail, I just want you to know that spoilers, just spoilers. So you have been warned about the spoilers. Also, I forgot to mention, but please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So back to the video. Okay, so in the beginning of the also I'm gonna just talk about chapters 1 through 3, like just simultaneously and stuff like that. But anyway, so when we first the first scene is of a cemetery, and as we go to the cemetery, um, Jane puts down a book, and the book says the Bay, the Bay of Hope. And we don't get to know who, like, tombstone she put the, I want to say, the first copy of the book on the tombstone. We don't get to know who it is just yet, but we know that she puts it on there. And then after that, it basically goes back to basically her time at the place that she's at. And so goes back in time. She goes again, like I said, she goes to this guest house. And as soon as she gets there, uh she basically knocks on the door. Excuse me. But yeah, she basically knocks on the door, and a man answered, and she's shocked because she's like, you're not a woman, because when she booked the when she booked this guest house, she expected a woman. She was talking to a woman. She wasn't expecting a man. So she's like, who are you? And then of course he tells her that his name is Michael. And so we meet Michael, and I'm not gonna lie, uh first appearance, he just looks stuck up to me. I'm sorry. Like, oh, you know what? I should keep my opinions. I'm gonna keep my opinions of the the love interest to myself. I'm just gonna talk about like, again, let me just get back to the story. But anyway, she meets Michael, and um after she meets Michael, Janine comes, and of course, Jane is like, I thought I booked this. Well, no, Michael says Michael says first he thought he booked when he booked this guest house, he expected to be the only guest. And Jane said the same thing. And, Janine was like, she's sorry about that. This is her first time actually having to basically, this is her first time actually having to do this. This was, we later find out this was what her aunt used to do, but, because of her aunt passing, now it's what she does. And as Janine is talking to both Michael and Jane, Thomas walks in, and of course Thomas and Michael get off on the wrong foot, but Jane deflects, like, she basically shuts, she puts out the fire before it could go any further. And of course, Janine, this shows Thomas and Jane to her room. And like, she shows Thomas his room first, and then after she goes to show Jane her room. And while she's doing this, Janine also thanks Jane for her stepping in, because she didn't know what to do, because these guys was about to argue, and she didn't know how to deal with that. And of course, James like, hey, that's fine, it's understandable, and things like that. I forgot to also mention that while Janine was showing Thomas and Jane his room, after Janine leaves out of Thomas' room, Jane stays there for a bit, and before she leaves, Thomas thanks Jane for like, helping um calm down the situation that was about to get started between him and Michael. And of course, she says, you're welcome, and that like, this should be like a smooth sailing vacation for like each of them, and like there shouldn't be no drama anyway. And of course Thomas agrees. So again, back to Janine showing Jane her room. She gets to pick from 3 rooms, and I picked the luxury room just because like the view of it is just so immaculate. And again, I'll talk more about that later. But again, I picked the luxury room, and it's just so pretty, and it's a like pretty view. And Jane decides to unpack, and she decides to try to get started on her story because Jane is a writer, and I want to say either her agent or her publisher. I'm thinking it's her agent. But either way, her agent basically, I'm going to go with agent because I forgot which one it was. I'm thinking it's the agent. But yeah, um, because her agent told her to like just go on vacation and basically, try to get out of this writer's block that she's in. And she decides to go down to the beach and try to like, get started on her book. The her title is The Bay of Hope. That's the title of her story. So then and that's all she has. And so she goes down to the beach, and she's trying to again think of where to take this story, and it starts raining. And of course she's like, oh great. So now she's trying to hurry back to the she tried to hurry back to the guest house. And on her way to the guest house, because it's raining, she sees a woman soaked, and she decides to help her out. And the woman was asking her like she booked for the guest house that Jane is in. And so Jane was like, yeah, I'm there too, and stuff. And so Jane helps out, and they walk together in the rain. While they get there, they notice that the power is out and stuff because of the storm. And so Janine and Michael and Thomas, they are like, lighting up candles until the lights could come back on. And um that's where Jane basically introduced everyone to Lee, who is the fourth guest of this guest house. And so of course Jane gets changed out of her wet clothes. She comes back. Lee is also changed out of her wet clothes. And of course Janine, I guess she already had dinner. Like she already had dinner out and stuff before the storm had like cut off the powers, because she tells everyone like we could eat and also play board games. And the main board game that they play is Monopoly, where Michael boasts that he's the best of the best and no one can win, and no one could beat him. And of course Jane says, you do realize not everybody's gonna be gunning for you. And he was like, yeah, bring it. And of course they end up playing. And not only do they end up playing, but they're also trying to get to know each other. And it seems like no one wants to talk about why they are like here on vacation. Like Michael, he's not talking about why he's here. Lee's not talking about why she's here. Same with Thomas. Jane is the only one that says she's on this vacation to write a book. That's why she's here. And of course, everybody's just like, "Oh, really? And what's the book about?" And she's like, "Yo, I'm struggling. That's the reason why I'm on this vacation. I'm struggling. I have writer's block, and I just, I'm taking this vacation so I could like get the juices flowing so I can write this story." And after that, they all go to bed, and I wanna say either before she goes to bed or after. Like this could be in chapter 1 or this could be in chapter 2. But Michael ends up talking to someone. I'm thinking it's in chapter 2. I'm thinking it's in chapter 2. I forgot how chapter 1 ended. I think it just ended with like a new day or something like that. But either way, now we're on to chapter 2. Michael, he's talking to someone on the phone, and of course, it's just, yeah, I think this is in chapter 2. Michael talks to someone, and he's on the phone, and I'm saying "and" a whole lot. Sorry about that. But yeah, he's on the phone, he talks to someone, and it just seems like the conversation just seems horrible and stuff. Like, because he says something about like he could go to jail, something like that. And of course, Jane takes in her mind like, oh, he could be a mafia boss. He could be like connected to some like crime mob or something like that. Like it's she thinks something slick, and I just thought that was hilarious because it's like, really, Jane, you don't know what it could be about, and you automatically thinking like, oh, he could be a crime boss or something like that. I just thought that was funny. Anywho, what was it? Yeah, Thomas ends up, he's writing, yeah, he's writing a letter to someone. We don't know who. And that's another thing. Like, everyone's kind of secretive. Like I said, everyone's kind of secretive to, like, yeah, secretive and don't want to explain themselves in a way. Jane's the only one that seems a little less secretive, even though she still has her secrets, some secrets. We could tell like she's just we could tell everyone else is very secretive. But either way, Thomas asks Jane for advice since she's a writer because he's struggling, and she gives him advice. After that, she goes downstairs, and because like I said, she's trying to like write, it's not happening. So she goes downstairs, and you know she um she sees Janine cooking and stuff because the light came back on. She sees Janine cooking, and they just like you. She helps Janine. I want to say she helps him. She helps her with some type of dessert and stuff, and of course Janine is trying to get a read on Jane. Like, she's trying to get to know Jane a little bit more. And Jane is the same way with Janine as well. Because again, like I said, like everyone is just very secretive. They're very guarded in that type of way. And of course, they eat breakfast together. I don't think, yeah, Michael doesn't eat breakfast with them. Um, because again, he's too busy having a phone call and stuff like that. But of course, Janine, not Janine, but Jane, like she goes upstairs to basically again work on her book, and she meets Michael and tells him like, hey, breakfast is down there if he wants breakfast and stuff like that. So um I want to say chapter 2 is also, yeah, chapter 2 is also the chapter where she calls someone, um and we find out that that person that she calls is her dad. That's another reason why she is here, as well. So not only because she's trying to write her book, but she's also here to talk to her dad, because you see a picture. She has a picture of her mom and her, and then you see the man. You don't see the man's face because it's cut out and stuff like that. But like, because she made that call, um, yeah, she wants to speak to her father, and the receptionist says that like she'll let like her dad know. And so she even gave Jane even gave the receptionist her last name, like her whole name, like says, hey, let him know that Jane Dawson wants to speak to him and stuff like that. And of course, she goes back downstairs and meets up with Lee, and they decide to go and hang out on the beach, just relax under the sun and just enjoy this moment. And so they change into their bikinis and go to the beach. The beach is looking a little bit messy from yesterday's storm, but that still doesn't stop them from enjoying and relaxing. And so while they're doing this, Janine comes out and give them drinks and stuff like that. And of course, Lee talks about how we find out that Lee's a pilot. I forgot to also mention that we find out that Thomas is military as well. We don't know what Michael is in this. We don't know what he is in chapter 1 and 2. We don't know what his occupation is, but Janine does bring it up because she asks, like, she wonders what Michael's occupation, and Jane was like, Jane doesn't know, and Lee doesn't know either. So, but Janine, she think it's interesting that so far her guesses are like a military guy, a writer, and a pilot so far. And so again, we get like little bits and pieces of information from Lee, like her being adopted, her, decided that she wanted to become a pilot, and now that she is a pilot, and she talks about the type of plane that she flies. And then of course we know a bit about Janine, how she, is now owning and opening up the guest house, and how this wasn't her dream. This was like her aunt's. However, her aunt had passed, and so now she is responsible for the guest house. And so as we see that, I want to say after that they go back inside. And again, I forgot to mention, but while um Jane was helping Thomas with his letter, even though he wouldn't tell her like who's the letter for and stuff like that, um he asked her, does she want to go walking with him at night? And of course she decides to go walking with him. And at night, after dinner, um and of course, like, Jane asks Thomas about the letter, And like, was he able to? Well, I think he said thank you because he was able to write it and stuff. And he's like, "Would you want to know what it's about?" And then she asked him, "Would he would he even tell her?" And he said no. And I'm trying to figure out why did he say that? Like, why would you ask that question? Like, you know you're not gonna tell her what the letter's about. Why did you open up that can of worms? But that's neither here nor there. Anywho, they go back into the guest house and go to sleep. But before she goes to sleep, she gets a call from her dad saying, like, yeah, she gets a call from her dad. And basically um she ends up wanting to meet him. Um yeah, I think, yeah, I want to say she just ends up getting a call from her dad. That ends, I want to say, chapter 2. And then chapter 3 is basically Jane basically sets, like, she tells her dad that she needs to talk to him right away, even though she says that she's going to be in town for a few days. She still wants to talk to him, get out of the way. And of course they set for, like, um I want to say tomorrow. That's because, like, I'm thinking, like, yeah, I'm thinking they said, yeah, they set up for tomorrow. Anyway, she wakes up and she goes out to she goes out on the balcony and she sees Thomas exercising on the beach. She also noticed that, like, Mike was also outside and he's still talking to someone. But, like, she pays that no mind. She again, she gets dressed, she goes downstairs. Um she has breakfast. Oh wait, I'm missing something. I feel like I'm Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. Yeah, I think I am missing something. I want to say the end of chapter 2. I think I jumped the gun a bit. The end of chapter 2, I want to say she calls her dad. If it's chapter 3, I can't remember, but I do know that I want to say she ends up. Yeah, I think her dad ends up, like, in chapter 3. I know her dad ends up talking to her, and her saying that she wants to talk to him today because she, even though she's gonna be here for a few days, she still. It seemed like there's something urgent that she wants to tell him and stuff, and of course, um, she asked Janine if she could call a cab for her, but Michael says, like, he's going into town too, so she could catch a ride with him. And she decides to she gets dressed and then she catches a ride with him. And of course they are talking, and yeah, of course they're talking a bit and stuff. Nothing like romantic. They're not flirting or anything. They just, just socializing. He drops her off at the office that her father works in, because I want to say her father's a lawyer. Anyway, and she texts her dad saying that she's out there and she's waiting for him. And he comes up to her and says, "Jane," and she looks up and she's like, "Hey, Dad." And of course, you know, he's shocked to see how much she's grown and things like that. And he asks her to go to one of his favorite places to get something to eat, and she does. And while they're there, it seems awkward. And Jane, she's like a mix of emotions. She don't know how to feel because she's like happy to see him, but she's sad and angry because he basically left and abandoned her and her mom. And now she's trying to figure out, like, why was she not enough for him in a sense. And again, he's trying to make conversation and stuff. It seems like he just wants to get to know it. Like, to get to know her and to start anew. However, Jane busts his bubbles by telling him that her mother had died. And the smile that he had on his face faded. And then Jane says, I know you're busy, so I'm just gonna leave you to it. And then she walks off. And I'm just thinking, damn, that's cold. That's cold blooded. I was like, now I don't say that. Now I'm not saying that I disagree with what she did, but I was like, dang, like, whoa, she said what she had to say. And of course, she catches a ride with Michael again because she tells Michael that she's done, and he basically tells her to meet him at the um at the hospital. And so that's what she does. She meet him at the hospital, and they they get in the car and stuff like that. He makes a little like medical joke, and he does ask um he does ask Jane to guess like what he was there for. And she said that it, like she said something like he must be a doctor because he knows where to go in the hospital because he went to a certain place in the hospital and stuff like that. And of course, he says like, you're not wrong. And he tells her like what type of doctor he is. Basically, he's a neurosurgeon. And of course, she makes a joke about like, are you trying to did you come here to look for like a new job? And he kind of goes silent from there. And she changes the subject and stuff. And so they go back to the guest house. And of course, they go their separate ways. And she sees, I think I want to say, yeah, she goes outside. And before she could go to the beach, she just sees Lee just sitting at the patio area. And she just, and like, she goes up to her, and she could tell that she looked sad. And she's like asking, Lee, like, hey, is everything all right? And then that's where Lee says that she's a murderer. And that's how episode 3 is. Now I'm pretty sure that I missed a whole lot of stuff, but that was the main um the stuff that I talked about was the main points that I wanted you guys to know about. And so now for my thoughts on Te Amo, the Bay of Hope, volume 1. So far, I like it. I actually enjoy reading this, mainly because Romance Club, like there's only a few. I'm not even gonna say a few. I want to say there's only, in my opinion, there's only one story where it's like slice of life type of situation, and that is Sophie's 10 wishes. Bleh, bleh, bleh. Sophie's 10 wishes. I don't know why I couldn't say wishes, but okay. But yeah. Oh, and I also forgot On Thin Ice as well. Yeah, so like there's only two stories that are like slice of life in a way. Well, not slice of life in a way, but are slice of life in a way that like has drama to it, and real life like scenarios. And like I said, On Thin Ice and Sophie's 10 wishes. Um all the all the rest of Romance Club stories are just like fantasy and things like that. So to just get a book that's not like fantasy, that doesn't seem unrealistic but seems realistic, um I feel like, again, it's a breath of fresh air. um and also, like, I love the scenery. Like, the scenery and the graphics are so beautiful. Like, Romance Club always knock it out of the ballpark when it comes to their graphics. Like, the scenes are just so beautiful and immaculate. So, like, again, it's Romance Club. And also, the background music goes goes well with like what's going on in each scene, which I also enjoyed as well. um I like the fact that each character, like each person, is just a bit different. I also I wanna I wanted to see if there was more information about about each character. Also, just want you guys to know that the name of the guest house is called the Waves Cradle. So yeah, just want to let you guys know, like, that's the name of the guest house, the Waves. Um, what else I want to say? I also like so far. Um, I have so far, like, I don't see nothing like wrong with the story so far. Like, so far it seems interesting. I know I didn't stop playing until I was done with episode 3, because like I said, it's an interesting story so far. And I'm just curious about everyone. Like, mainly, like, um especially, like, I'm curious about Thomas, why he's there. Like, what was the letter about? Because it seemed like he had a duty to write the letter, like he had obligation, and it makes you wonder, like what's so important about the letter. Not only that, but why Michael is there, because he's a neurosurgeon. And also makes you think, like, why is he going to jail? Like, why is he saying that he might go to jail? Is it because of something that he did because he is a neurosurgeon? And then also Lee, like, I want to know, why does she think she's a murderer? Because, and also, she was also looking up. Also, this is set in place in Louisiana. I forgot to mention, but she was also looking up like orphanage in Louisiana and was asking Janine and um Jane, like, were there any orphanages in Louisiana and stuff like that. And so it makes me wonder, like, was there someone in the orphanage or just someone in the foster system that she's trying to look for and stuff like that? Like you have I have so many questions that need to be answered, that I'm very intrigued to know what happened next, where the story is going to go, and also if Jane's father is going to reach back out to her, because, like, it seems like he really did want a connection with her. However, she just shut him down immediately. Like, she only came to tell him about the fact that her mother is dead, and then she bounced. And so it makes me wonder, is he going to still try to work on a like relationship with his daughter? And it makes you wonder what's going on. And also with Janine as well, because we know that she is now the owner, now the new owner of the Waves. And it's like, how did, like, you, I kind of want to know like what's going on in her head too, because she has moments where she seems sad and just like at a loss. So I want to know like what's going on with her too. I also enjoy the fact that even though if you don't like, if you only want to romance the men or romance the women, I like the fact that you can automatically have a friendship with anyone. And so I can't wait to see how the friendship grows between Janine and Lee. Um, and now let's get to the romantic side of it, because I like, my preference is men. And so the only two love interests that I have is Thomas and Michael. And if I'm being completely honest, Thomas is more appealing to me. And it's not because of how he looks. It's mainly because of his personality. Like, he's like, he's kind of like laid back in a way. Like, he may have his routines that he do, but he's kind of laid back and chill, and he actually enjoys having a conversation with you. Whereas Michael, he kind of tends to like to be by himself and things like that. So, and again, Michael doesn't seem like he wants to open up, but at least Thomas doesn't want to open up that much as well, but he opens up a little bit to where the conversation is nice to have with him. Where Michael, like, you, I feel like you have to put in more work, and there's nothing wrong with putting in more work, but I don't know. Um, his personality, mm, not really my cup of tea for now. Who knows? That can change soon. Um, but yeah, that's all I have to say about the story so far. Um, I do know that I can't wait until more episodes come out. I would definitely give you guys a full review about this, about volume 1 of Te Amo, the Bay of Hope, especially like when it fully comes out. We'll definitely give you guys a review on it. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the Bay of Hope so far. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about the story, what you like or like about it. Also, do you have a love interest that you already like so far? Like, is it Janine? Is it Michael? Is it Thomas? Or is it Lee? Or is it nobody? Because, hey, there is an option where you don't have to romance anybody. You could just be friends with everyone. So just let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. And if you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you. It means a lot. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, see ya.